All right, well, I want to welcome everyone to today's webinar. We are going to be looking at a new enhancement to accounts receivable. It's called engaged billing. We will take questions at the end of the webinar. So what we ask you is that if you would just type your questions into the chat window, and we have Chris Widener from our marketing department. He'll be monitoring questions during the webinar, and we will answer as many as we can at the end. So what do we want to look at today? What we want to go through is the process of getting CDM Plus and Engage prepared to use Engage Billing. But what is Engage Billing? What Engage Billing is it allows you as an organization to offer your people the ability to make payments online through Engage. And so what we'll need to do to show you this is we need to show you what you need to do within CDM Plus and what you need to do within Engage Billing to get yourself prepared to offer this new service. Once we have it all set up, we'll go through what it's like for a person to create an Engage account and make a payment through Engage Billing. And then finally, what we'll do is we'll look at what happens after that payment has been made. Where does it go? Is it going into the ether? Is it going into the, as we just know it's going into the clouds. So we want to give you a little bit of an idea of what happens after that process. So we're going to do this by looking at a specific scenario. And our scenario is going to be that we have a church that has a school, and the school charges semester-based tuition. The church has not been using Engage Billing, but they want to. And so they are getting it ready to use in their upcoming 2020 winter spring semester. But they know that they still have people that are paying during the current semester, so they want to make it available early to see how it's going to work. Another thing that we need to know before we get into this is that the customer records for the current semester or their student records have already been entered into accounts receivable, and they've already created invoices, statements, and even payments have been made for the current semester. In our scenario, we're going to focus in on one family, the Richardson family, and they have one child who's a student at the school. Her name is Kaylee, and she's been a student during the current semester, and her parents have been making payments on the current invoice as the semester has gone through. Another important thing to know is that in this particular scenario, Kaylee's parents are in the church's individual and membership database, as well as their giving database. So when we talk about needing to set up CDM Plus, there's only two things that we really need to focus in on. One is on the membership side with respect to individual records, and then on the accounts receivable side for customer records. Now, in the individual records, what you need to focus on is, do you have the most up-to-date email addresses for your for the parents? And so this church has received information from the parents, and they need to verify that CDM Plus has the right email addresses. So we find the Richardson family in the individual records database, and we pull up email tab, And we see that we have two email addresses here for Jonathan and for Sophie. We verify that these are the correct email addresses. So now they both would be able to create Engage accounts. Now, if we go to Sophie's individual record and we go to the name tab, we'll see that Sophie already has an Engage account because we see a username username here at the bottom right under online credentials. However, if we go to Jonathan's record, Jonathan hasn't created a record, hasn't created an Engage account. And so that's one of the things that we're going to show today. All right, so the individual records, we know that they have the correct email addresses. And so what we're going to do now is we'll move to the customer records. To get this record ready to receive payments through Engage Billing, all the church has to do is pull up Kaylee Richardson's customer record, go to the individuals tab, and then click on change. And now you need to add the parent's name, individual records to this account. So we click on add individual. We do a search for their name and we add Sophie. And then we click add individual at the bottom left again. Find. And we add Jonathan. And we click save. That's all we have to do in CDM Plus to prepare for Engage Billing. Now what we need to do is we need to move over into the Engage portion of the setup. And we do so by logging into our Web Ministry Tools account. And we go to Engage Billing. So if you were just to come in right into your Web Ministry Tools, this is what you would see. Well, you would see this, and then you'd have to come in here and click on Engage Billing. And once you get into Engage Billing, there's not a lot to set up here. You have 2 surcharge amounts to deal with and 2 account fields to deal with. So what we are allowing here is that you have the ability to set surcharges for credit cards and for ACH transactions. The credit card surcharge is a percentage. So in our case here, we have set a 2% credit card surcharge. But the ACH surcharge is a flat amount. And so we've put that as a flat amount of $3. You can put any value you want here, whatever you want to charge as a surcharge. If you don't want to charge it, just put 0. Now, if you are going to collect surcharges, you'll need to associate a surcharge account to be able to receive those fees. And so in our case, we've created a income account called Engage Billing Surcharge Fees. And we've put that, and we've selected that from our list of accounts. And then because merchant fees will be assessed to this transaction, you'll need to be able to track those fees. And so we've selected the expense account called merchants fees. Once you have all of that set up, you click save. With that saved, you're ready now to promote Engage Billing. And one of the things to know, I mean, to be able to use, for your people to use it, is they need to be able to create an Engage account, log into it, and then be able to make a payment, have a credit card or an ACH transaction like a checking account. So what we'll do now is we'll go over to Engage. And so we log in. Whoop, I've already logged in. Let me log out here. So I was in with Sophie's account. So now we want Jonathan wants to be able to get into Kaylee's account and make a payment. But Jonathan doesn't have a username and password yet. He doesn't have an account. So here underneath the sign in, there is create account. And so we click on create account. And the first thing it's going to ask is it wants his email address. And his email address is this. And you click register. Now it says the following names linked to this. Okay, so what it's done, it's taken that email address, gone into CDM Plus, into the individual records, and says, find me all of the individual records that have this email address associated with it. And so what they found is this one, Jonathan Richardson, which we verified at the beginning of this. So we select that, and then it says it wants us to create a username. So we're going to create a username of Jonathan. And what's going to happen is when I click this create username, it's going to send me an email. It's going to send Jonathan an email. And it wants a passcode. So I'm going to go over to Jonathan's Gmail account. And there is the email that's been received for the password reset. And we're going to come down through this and we're going to get this password code, and we're going to highlight it and copy it, bring it back over to Engage, and we'll paste that and click on check code. So now that has verified that code, and now I can create a password. So the password has been set. And now I can come in and I can put in Jonathan's username and password and sign in. All right, so now Jonathan signed in and he wants to make this payment against Callie's student invoice. So up in the upper right-hand corner, there's hamburger menu, click on that. And now you'll see an option called billing. So we'll select billing. And this brings us to the billing page. And we see that this is billing for Kaylee Richardson. The reason why here is he has 2 children. Well, Haley is going to begin school in the next semester and has already had an invoice sent to them, has already had an invoice created and a statement sent. And so if he wanted to get on and see her, how much she owes, he can just click on switch account and select Haley. And now we see the current balance on Haley's is $450. But in our case, he's going to make a payment against Haley. Her original invoice was for $950. You can see that the last payment they've made was on November the 8th for $100. So they're well behind in paying this semester's tuition. So he wants to make this payment. But before he can do that, he needs to make sure that he has a payment method. So he goes back up to the menu and he selects accounts. And this is where he can select and create specific credit card or bank accounts. And so in our case, what we're going to do is we're going to select credit card. We're going to set up a new credit card for him to use. And we'll call this Jonathan's Visa. And the name on the card is Jonathan Richardson. And the card. And it is 420. And he lives at 4521. Knoxville, Tennessee 37918. So he has everything set here for his credit card and his billing address for that. And he clicks create account. Okay to create this account. Yep. And so Engage goes and successfully creates that account. Now he can come back into the billing page and say, make a payment. And he can pay this in full, or he can pay a specific amount, a partial payment. So we're going to do partial payment here. And he's going to make a partial payment of $350 and click continue. Now notice it didn't ask for any address information or anything like that, because all of that is tied to the individual and address records in their database. All it wants is the amount and what kind of payment and type, and we're going to use the Visa. Click on continue, and you see it brings in all of his billing information, what the current balance was, the payment. There's the fee, the 2% fee, and it's $7 added to that. And he will have a remaining balance of $400 once that $350 is paid. So we click on submit payment. It says, are you sure you want to do that? Yep, click OK. All right, and now the payment has been successfully submitted. So now if we go back to my billing, you see that the current balance has already been updated, so he knows exactly where he is. If we go back into the customer record, go back to name, it still says $750, but let's just select Haley and then come back to Kaylee, and now you see the balance record has also been changed. So what happens once you make that, you submit that payment? Now, let me bring up this slide here, just so you can kind of get an idea. So when you make a payment, the first thing that happens is that payment is sent to Stewardship Technology for processing. At the same time, there's an accounts receivable payment record that's created. So if I go back to here and I click on payments for Kaylee, I see there's a $350 payment that's been made, and that is the one that's from Engage Billing. So if I come under the the record tab here, we can see that the source here is Engage. Now, right now, it isn't posted to the ledger, so it's sitting there waiting to go through the process that you normally go through. So an AR payment record is created. Also, the church and the payer sent an email that acknowledges the payment. So that way the church knows that they're receiving a payment for that, and the payer has record of what he paid. As you saw already, the customer balance was updated both within CDM Plus and in Engage. And then when this whole processing of the payment is complete, the church will see a deposit sitting in deposit processing and be able to process it through and make the final posting. So that is Engage Billing. That is how easy it is for your people to be able to pay online using Engage Billing and make the process where now with respect to accounts receivable, you can be paperless, because you can send statements via email, and you can receive payments through Engage Billing. And so this is a great way of making things easier on you and the church and organization, because you now can do things through email and online.